And how this all started for me, how many people in here would say that you've had fescue problems in your cattle or in your animals? Okay, so a few. And if I were to poll the farmers that I deal with out there, you get about the same reaction. About half of them say, yeah, I have problems I know of, or I think I have problems. And the other half would say, I don't have any problems, that that's all hogwash. And that really got me looking a little bit into what is actually the depth of the problem here in the Shenandoah Valley, locally for us. And in doing some of that research, I found an extension publication, which was really the best answer I could find. And it says, sampling in the 1980s revealed that 75% of fields surveyed had fungus present in 50% or more of the plants. And let me back up a second and give you a little bit of background, just in case you're not familiar with the Endophyte story. Most of the fescue here in the south is infected with a fungus. They call it an endophyte because it lives in the fescue plant. And that fungus gives a lot of benefits to the fescue plant. They have a mutualistic relationship, but it also creates alkaloid toxins that are toxic to grazing animals. And we see a whole host of animal health issues as a result of that. And collectively, we call it just fescue toxicosis, but they can be, you've probably heard of fescue foot, summer syndrome, that kind of thing. And so this publication was saying that in the 1980s they surveyed 75% fields, and 75% of those fields had that fungus in 50% more of the plants. And the first thing I thought was, that's 30 years old. Is it even still relevant? And the second question I had is that relevant here in the valley? Because who knows where they took those samples. It might have been south side Virginia, or I don't know where it was at. But fortunately, we can test for this thing, and that's what we decided to do. Last summer, 2013, we partnered with 26 different farmers and tested a pasture on each of those farms. These stars, forgive me, my pointer is apparently not working. But, each of these stars represents a location where we tested a pasture. These were, I feel, pretty representative of what we see out there as far as pastures go. They weren't hog lots or anything like that. They collectively, these farms represented about 10,000 animals. So they're relatively well managed. It's what you would see if you're out there working in the valley. This picture here is, you can see that it's cell walls of a fescue plant, and then you see this squiggly line in here. That squiggly line is the endophyte, the fungus, and that kind of purple coloration, that's a staining technique that just shows you whether or not that fungus is present. It allows it to show up. And that's the test that we had conducted. We took our samples, we sent the samples down to the agnostics lab in Georgia, and they specialize in doing this test. And the results that they give you are in a percent of infection. So, we go through the pasture, we take fescue tillers, so many per pasture, 20, 50, whatever, and they send you back a report that tells you what percentage of those tillers were infected. And our results were pretty conclusive. 65% of the pastures sampled were 100% infected. 30% of the pastures were 80 to 90% infected. And then the remaining 5%, which is one pasture, was 50% infected. And that was our lowest infection rate. And that individual had actually stored fescue seed in the barn for 4 or 5 years, I think, to try and kill the endophyte. And apparently they did, but toxic fescue moves back into pastures, and maybe they didn't get a complete kill and so forth. So the main point here is, we've really got infection levels in the valley that are worse than what that publication has stated. So we've got some potential out there for problems. That doesn't tell you the whole story. That's just telling you whether you have infection. It doesn't tell you how much toxins those plants are producing, or how those toxins fluctuate over the course of a